Now let's take a little closer look at the span that comes along with these presets. I'm just going to scroll my timeline back a bit so we can see. Now this one looks like it's about 75 frames long, so it's much longer than the other ones we were looking at, but that's because there's more going on. We can see in the span these diamonds appear, and those represent some of the setting changes. For instance, in this particular animation, we've got the camera scaling each time it hits the ground. It kind of stretches out sideways. We can also see a little representation of the span with the dots going along the path. As we mentioned before, each one of these dots represents a frame in our timeline. Now, we're not stuck with the span for the preset, but in general, they've chosen a reasonable span based on the motion that you're going to see. We can change these spans almost the same way as we do a normal frame span. In fact, it's even easier. If this was just a normal frame span, as we saw in our last chapter, we'd have to press the Control key and then grab the square at the end of the span. Now on the Mac, that would be the Command key. But in a motion tween, the way we have right now, we don't have to use any Control key at all. We can just grab the end of the span, and you see my cursor changes. All I have to do is click and drag to shorten the span or extend it. Now, if I shorten it a little bit, let me pull it right down to 45 here. I still get the same motion path, but you notice that there's fewer dots and they're spaced further apart. Now, in general, that means my animation is going to finish faster, so it's going to have to move faster as it moves along the path. Let's use the play control to see what this animation looks like at full speed. That's going to be the return or the enter key on your keyboard. And you can see that it plays much faster. If we shorten it up even more, I'll pull it down to about 20 frames here. It'll still play the animation, but we've only got a few points. We'll hit the play key again, and it bounces extremely fast now. If we go the opposite direction, I can scroll down here to the end and make this animation much longer than it was before. Now you can see if we make it really long, it doesn't show you every single point for all the frames, because we have quite a few of them here. But it still shows you the same shape of the path. Let's hit our return key now and see what we get. We're getting that same motion path, but it looks like it might be bouncing on the moon or something. We've got a very slow animation. Now we can actually see a little bit of what we were talking about before. It's not the frame rate that controls the speed, but the way to control speed on most of your animations is to control the number of frames. Remember, our camera is still going the same distance regardless of how many frames it takes. If we have a large number of frames to cover the same distance, it's going to move a lot slower as it does so. If we give it a short number of frames, it's going to have to move faster to get to the end. Let's try one more motion preset just to see how that's working. I'm going to go back to a simple fly-in one. So I've still got my camera selected. I'll go back to our fly-in right. Again, that was just a simple fading animation as it flies in. I'll click Apply. I'll click Yes to replace the current selection. You can see that it reduced that big span back to the default span for a fly-in right. Now it's hanging off the screen, so I'm going to select my motion path. One click, and now I can grab this so that it's on the screen a little bit closer. And let's see what the default looks like. I'll just hit the return key. We can see the fly out right there. And if I grab that span and drag it out to twice the distance, out to frame 50, we've got a lot more dots here. And if I hit my enter key, we've got a lot slower animation as it flies out.